So luckiness is really something that you kind of have to have the right state of mind. You have to be sort of trusting, you have to be aware of what's going around you, and you have to embrace serendipity. I mean, I have friends who are in Japanese companies who have regular meetings every day, all day long. So the regular admin meeting, the weekly blah blah meeting, the monthly blah blah meeting. And so if you have an agenda with an outcome that's already determined and you have no serendipitous meetings, you can't be lucky. If you plan everything, you can't be lucky by definition, right? And so I think what's really important is you have to be very lucky. And the way you become lucky is you have to be aware of what's around you. You have to do the power of pull, which is, hey, I just met these guys and these people, let's go get this, let's go get that, let's build it right now. Because sitting around and thinking about whether to build it is a waste of time, and it also destroys serendipity, because a lot of serendipity is about timing as well. So I think this is another important philosophy. But to apply this a little bit to the Media Lab, because I think the Media Lab is a lot about the philosophy of the internet applied to an academic environment, to some other topics. First of all, the Media Lab is media, arts, and science. So this is key. It's not about science, it's not about art, it's about both. And what's really important is that you bring design and engineering and all of these things together, because you need to have both sides in the same room. So even, it's not just like when we say we're multidisciplinary, it's not about connecting the chemistry lab with the biology lab. It's about connecting the artists with the technologists. This is our building, which I'm lucky because it's brand new and I didn't have to raise the money for it. But it's designed based on a lot of the philosophy of the internet, of the Media Lab, which is that everything is relatively transparent. You can see all the groups, and the lab space is very open. And this is kind of the atelier model. So we're part of the School of Architecture and Planning, which gives us some of the DNA of the Media Lab, which is just build stuff. And so these are the lab spaces where people make stuff. It's kind of messy, and then you have the offices above. Here are some of the statistics. It was founded in '85 by Nicholas Negroponte and Jerome Wiesner, who was the head of the president of MIT at the time. And another key was Jerome Wiesner was one of the few people who was once the head of the dean of engineering as well as humanities. So they wanted to bring both of those together. We have 28, right now 25. We're doing a faculty search now, but we have about 28 faculty, 140 grad students, including PhD and postdoc. A little over 300 projects, 70 sponsors, and about a $35 million operating budget. The key thing about this operating budget is most of it is undirected research. So when the companies give us money, they don't tell us what to do with it. We do whatever we want, which is really important because a lot of labs, unfortunately, can only get money because they write grants. They say, I'm going to do this, give me money for this. That means, by definition, that you're doing something that some bureaucrat can understand and give you money for it. That means also that you know the answer before you start the research, right? We give money to stuff where we have no idea what this person is trying to do, and we give the freedom to the students and the faculty to do whatever they want. And the only caveat is they have to do stuff that's original, that other people aren't doing, and to be extremely creative. And a lot of the ideas it gets back to this earlier model, which is you have to try it before you really know whether it's going to be successful. I mean, just think about if somebody came up to you and said, I'm going to create the most important website in the world. It's going to be better than Encyclopedia Britannica. You know what? The key is going to be anybody can edit it. Would you fund that? Of course not, right? But because the cost was so cheap to get started, in retrospect, it's kind of obvious, but you would never have figured that out from a grant proposal. Grant proposal for Linux would never have made it. If you read the first quote from Linus when he posted to Usenet, he said, I'm going to do a little kernel to make it interesting, anybody want to join? It was almost the same as like 100 other proposals at the time. But the good thing is you don't have to pick the winners if you have 300 projects or if you have thousands and thousands of open source projects. And again, it really is a lot like venture capital. A lot of the stuff we do at the Media Lab doesn't turn out to be very interesting, but occasionally we have really, really interesting stuff that comes out that only comes out when you allow people to do things that are undirected. And so we're very multidisciplinary, and actually in our faculty, search document, we're now using the word anti-disciplinary. More hardcore. And we're about building stuff. I mean, we don't hire any faculty or allow any students to come in to do theoretical work. I mean, nothing against theoretical work. My sister's a social anthropologist, cultural anthropologist. It's important to have people who do theoretical work. But in our lab, unless you can build it, we don't let you do it. And so even though we have economists, we have an economist faculty, he builds models, he builds software. And then we have to be very agile. And so some of the things that I'm working on at the Media Labs, the Media Lab, when you have a wonderful building like that with lots of smart people and cookies, you tend not to have to go out very much, and you sort of stay in. And I'm trying to push that more into a platform model. Like, so if you think about, like, TED is a good example, right? TED used to be this amazing meeting that no one knew what was going on inside, but it sounded really cool. And then they started opening up the videos, and they started doing TEDx. They were able to keep the brand and turn TED into a much more inclusive platform. I think there's a similar kind of model of transformation that the Media Lab can do. Also, getting back to that chart that I showed you about the world becoming more complex. When the Media Lab was founded 25 years ago, it was before the computer revolution, it was before people were talking about digital, it was before the internet. So it was a lot about man-machine. It was kind of like the Sony Walkman. It was about single products. Today, I think we need to think about ecosystems and networks and participation and communities. So that's, we're shifting, I think, more and more towards ecosystems. And then I'm changing the word from sponsors. I'm getting rid of the idea of sponsors. Because sponsors are kind of like, you give money over here, do stuff over here. It's kind of hub and spoke. And I'm calling the sponsors members now. I'm trying to turn the sponsorship model into a community model where we're trying to connect and sponsors together. And so I'm trying to create a Media Lab network. And I'm going to try to extend the network to this region as well. And so hopefully I'm going to be able to work with Mazda and Shelter and all these other places and make everybody part of the Media Lab rather than a separate thing. And so these are just some things that I've started. We started a blog. We didn't have a blog. Started releasing things under Creative Commons, open data. We're reviewing our intellectual property policy. We're now streaming our talks that you guys and putting the videos online. They seem like obvious things, but things that we hadn't done in the past. And the meetings that we have are now open. And some areas I'm personally kind of interested in short term are open hardware. I think that what happened with open source software is now happening in hardware, where open hardware designs are becoming available. You can download the designs, you can manufacture. Small startups can now do hardware. And I think it's going to become increasingly so. And Media Lab is good at hardware. Big data, and then also open standards. You know, I was showing you, like David Clark is at MIT, Tim Berners-Lee is at MIT. There's a lot of people who created the open standards of the internet in the East Coast. The people on the West Coast use these standards, but they're kind of closed. Like Facebook, it's like, whose work do you think you guys were sitting on top of, you know? And so I think open standards are something that the East Coast guys are better at doing, and open APIs. So these are some of our professors. The key thing also is that we don't have very much overlap between professors. So the typical computer science department, you'll have a dozen professors working on almost the same thing, trying to go very deep in a category. What we do is we try to make sure that our professors don't overlap. Because what we want is we want to have an extremely diverse group of people. And so I'm going to zoom through, since I'm running low on time, some of our areas of research, just so you can see the sort of spectrum. So, you know, we're working on speech and mobility. We have an optics group. This is an entry device that can use very low-cost devices to do eye diagnosis using a smartphone. We have a camera that shoots at 3 trillion frames a second. So in like one frame, light moves about 0.6 millimeters. And you can use that actually to do diffraction patterns to see around corners. We're working on 3D displays and things like that. We're doing artificial intelligence work. We're doing a lot of work in interfaces. We're doing technology that allows you to build electronics into things like crafts and things like that. So young girls and people who don't typically interact with electronics can now work on electronics.